Low, controlled tone. Slow pacing. I smell alcohol. 3 words. That's all it takes. No test. No proof. No confirmation. Just a statement. And in that moment, the entire traffic stop changes direction. Most people think this is about drinking. It's not. It's about interpretation. Because once those words are spoken, everything you do next, your posture, your tone, your timing, gets filtered through a new lens. Suspicion. And here's what most people never realize. Backhand index pointing right, you are no longer just a driver. You are now a subject of investigation. This is where things change. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. And what happens next is almost always misunderstood. Section 1. The power of a statement. Here's what most people miss. I smell alcohol is not evidence. It's not proof. It's a justification. A legal pivot point. Courts analyze this phrase as a basis for expanding the stop. Before that moment, the officer is handling a traffic issue. After that moment, backhand index pointing right, it becomes a DUI investigation. And that shift gives officers more latitude. More questions. More observation. More scrutiny. I've seen cases where nothing was found. No impairment. No intoxication. But the entire stop escalated because of that one statement. Because courts don't ask, backhand index pointing right, was alcohol actually present? They ask, backhand index pointing right, was it reasonable for the officer to believe it was? That's the standard. Reasonable suspicion. Not certainty. Section 2. Your first reaction. This is where most people make their first mistake. Not by speaking. By reacting. A sudden shift in posture. A defensive tone. A quick explanation. I only had 1 drink. I'm fine. I'm not drunk. These responses feel natural. But here's the problem. They confirm the topic. Now alcohol is not just suspected. It's acknowledged. Even indirectly. Courts analyze early responses closely. Because they set the tone for everything that follows. Silence, tone, and pacing matter here. Not just content. Section 3. Movement under suspicion. Once suspicion is introduced, movement becomes evidence. Every action. Every adjustment. Every small motion. Bodycam review focuses heavily on behavior after the statement. Did your hands move suddenly? Did your posture change? Did your eyes shift? None of these prove intoxication. But they contribute to perception. And perception builds narrative. This is where timing matters. A movement that looked normal seconds earlier now looks suspicious. Not because it changed. Backhand index pointing right because the context changed. Section 4. The voice analysis. Most people don't realize this. But your voice becomes part of the evidence. Not just what you say. How you say it. Courts analyze. Speech clarity, response, timing, tone shifts, pauses. Bodycam microphones capture everything. A slight hesitation. A change in rhythm. A slower response. These get interpreted. Not medically. Behaviorally. You may feel calm. But if your voice sounds uncertain, that becomes part of the record. Section 5. The eye contact factor. Here's a subtle detail that appears often in reports. Eye contact. Too little can be interpreted as avoidance. Too much can be interpreted as tension. There is no perfect balance. Because interpretation is subjective. And that's the point. Courts don't rely on eye contact alone. But they include it. As part of a larger behavioral picture. One detail rarely decides anything. But multiple small details do. Section 6. Exit from the vehicle. This is where the situation often escalates. Once suspicion exists, officers may ask you to step out. Now the environment changes. Inside the car, you are contained. Outside, you are fully observable. Your balance, your coordination, your movement, all become visible. And all become subject to interpretation. Courts analyze how you exit. Slow? Fast? Steady? Unsteady? Even normal movement can be framed as impairment, if it fits the narrative. Section 7, Field Observations, 1630 to 1830. At this stage, everything becomes observation, not proof. Observation. Officers begin noting swaying balance, hand coordination, eye movement. These observations form the foundation of reports. And later, they are presented in court as indicators. But here's what matters: they are subjective. Two officers may interpret the same behavior differently. But once documented, they become part of the official narrative. Section 8, Body cam versus memory. Here's something critical. Body cam footage doesn't tell the full story. It shows behavior, but not intention, not context, not internal state. So when courts review footage, they rely on visible cues and written reports. Memory fills the gaps. But memory is influenced by perception. And perception, once suspicion is introduced, tends to confirm itself. This is how narratives solidify. Section 9, The compound effect. No single detail decides the outcome. It's the combination. A slight delay in response, a small movement, a tone shift, a balance adjustment. Individually, they mean little. Together, they form a pattern. And courts analyze patterns, not isolated moments. This is where most people lose. Not because of one mistake. Backhand index pointing right because of accumulated interpretation. MIDCTA, natural insert. If you're starting to see how small details build a larger picture, that's the part most people never understand. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this, because these moments matter more than people think. Section 10, Detention versus arrest. At some point, the stop may shift again, from investigation to detention, and possibly arrest. But here's what most people misunderstand: that shift is not always obvious. There is no clear announcement, no exact moment you can point to. Courts analyze duration, control, restriction of movement, not what you think is happening, what is actually occurring. This is where legal classification becomes complex, and why perception matters so much. OUTRO, slow, deliberate tone. I smell alcohol. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because from that moment forward, you are no longer just being observed. You are being interpreted. Every movement, every word, every second becomes part of a narrative. And that narrative is what gets reviewed. Not your intentions, not your explanations, your behavior. So remember this: it's not about proving anything in the moment. It's about understanding how that moment will be seen later. Because once interpretation begins, every detail matters. And sometimes, that's all it takes.